So welcome to Handmade Chelsea Online, another live interactive sessions. We're joined this afternoon by Ashleen with Ster Jewellery. So she's going to be talking about her inspirations and design process. Now remember, this is an interactive session, so please do ask your questions in the chat box. My name's Alice and I'm part of the Handmade in Britain team, and welcome Ashleen as we go in, and I pass over the screen to you. Looking forward to hearing about your design processes.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you for everybody that's giving up some of their Saturday afternoon to listen to me speak. Yes, as Alice said, if you've got any questions, that will actually really help me out, so do ask them. I can't see you, but the questions will pop up and I would love to be able to answer them. I wanted to take today really to talk about what do you do when inspiration kind of loses you, you lose track of it, because I trained as an artist and now a jewellery designer, and I find that that is something, the creative process isn't always like standard. It sometimes doesn't flow, and that's one of the questions that people ask me that don't know so much about creativity and about making things, and like, what do you do when that happens? And the number one tip that I would like to give to you is speed. It's like there's a great advantage of doing things without thinking too much about them and not being too precious. So when I was designing what was my first collection, like the grey, I first of all started with an idea. I thought I wanted a feeling. It was a feeling of making people give a confidence, or creating a confidence that lasts longer than lipstick. It was I was thinking about what kind of imagery does that look like. I started looking at pop arts, but I wasn't sure about how that process or what the designs would start looking like. And I literally spent like quite a few weeks drawing and doing hundreds and hundreds of drawings. And these are just the ring designs. So if you see this like wad of paper, and there's literally, I would say probably about 500 designs on these in sketch form, and I do it on A3 paper because it is really throwaway. It doesn't matter if I make a mistake, and the idea is to get as many designs as I can do down in about half an hour and not look at them, and then take a little bit of a break and then start again. And as this process goes on, you begin to feel like which designs begin to resonate and stand out and makes you feel like, yeah, that's could be the beginning of something. I wanted to show you then like a next stage of a design. Like I had an idea that I wanted, I don't know if you can see it here, but I wanted to use like this kind of star motif that I've been using like a lot, and make it create the bezel that holds the stone, that holds the main stone. And so I had that kind of idea, but I didn't know what the shape of it exactly would look like, what kind of shape, like what kind of star would hold it, would make it all feel very balanced. But through a series of like models, out of cardboard, out of plasticine, I began to get an idea, and it began to become a lot more concrete. And then like that would be like much more of a final design when I begin to know exactly more like how the shape feels. But I never start with that. This drawing is the end of a process. It doesn't start. I think when people look at jewelry drawings, they see all these perfect gouaches that spent ages to be created, but I don't believe that's how things are designed. I think actually things are designed rough and ready, working on tracing paper, working on paper, working at speed, just so you begin to get an idea of what something could look like. And I wanted to show you then, so you saw the drawing, and then I wanted to show you now, like what, the light's not that brilliant, what the final design looks like. So you can see the bezel does actually hold the stone, and the star does come up. It's a mixture of gold, of white and yellow gold, and then it's got this optics cut morganite, which is the main central stone. And the reason why I went for optics cut was, again, because the whole collection's called Light the Grey. It's based on fireworks, and so each collection, each piece within the collection is named after a firework, and this one's called Cameroon, which is like a burst of light in the sky. And I wanted the optics cut stone to have that feeling as well, of something that's alight and alive as it moves. And then when you kind of look at it in more detail, it's then got the graphics of, again, the Liechtenstein and the little diamonds. And yeah, that's how that design came about. So I've talked about speed. That is my probably top tip when you get stuck with anything. Don't dwell on it. Don't allow yourself to wade through sand for too long. Just move on. But the other thing that I'd say was the crux of creativity is that it's like process without judgment. It's that believing in yourself and believing in the process and believing that you will somehow work a way through it, and just move, just feel confident in yourself that you have got the instincts to be able to make something work. I'm now going to show you another design, and this design ended as being Crozette, and I wanted a very modern design again, but actually really easy to wear. So this is a double shank. It is, again, yellow and white gold, and then it's got a slight amount of pavé set diamonds. Again, it's easy to wear, because for me, that's a really important element, that the designs look different, they look individual, but they are not something that just sits in a box. They are something that becomes part of life, because that was like the main reason why I became a jeweler, as opposed to staying on with art. I wanted these pieces to be worn, to create their own memories and associations as people go about their everyday. So that's the final design, but it didn't start like that. The very start of it was something much more rough, and I'm just trying to find it. Let me have a look here. It started with something much more like this. So I wanted to use positive and negative space. I always like that in designs, because I think it allows lines to breathe. It allows the body and the person that's wearing to interact with the piece and how it looks on the body. And I think that's when jewelry comes to life, for me anyway. And this design, it's very, very crude. So I literally took a photograph on my hand, and then just got some felt tips out and just looked at what different pieces I could start creating. I wanted something, again, like speedy, but still gave an idea of what a ring could be. You can see that there. And you're probably thinking, well, then how do you make that decision from one design to another design? And that, again, always goes back to the customer, to the people that are interested in your work, because you've got an idea of them. Like, for me, I know my customers, and I think of them as like elegant rebels. I think of them as people that are looking for something a little bit different, that want to be a bit individual, but again, they want to go about their everyday life. And so when I first thought that I would design something that was going to be more like that, where it's got a lot of the shankers would be closed down, and it would be threads. And for me, it was like, I wasn't sure about it. I felt like it was perhaps the shank and the actual star motif was perhaps too two different languages. One was more classical, traditional, the other one's more modern, and I was unclear about how that would sit together. So that's when I actually decided to go for something that was more open, which is where that design came from, that central design there, and which eventually, again, through a process of model making, became this piece here. And Cresette, actually, this is what this piece is called, and again, it's a name of a firework. And my final point about creativity is that sometimes it just takes you by surprise. You think that if something is simple, it's going to be really, really easy. And I would tell you that actually that could not be further from the truth, because I sometimes think, oh, I should be able to just design this in a day. And it doesn't work like that. And actually within this, like the grey collection, I really wanted to make a set of studs that people could curate and wear their own way, that they, you know, have people wear like a series of studs up their ear, and I wanted to do my own kind of style of them. But I really struggled. I struggled designing on things that were so small and small, but still wanted to make a difference. And honestly, it not constantly working on it, but it took me a long time. And I came up with these really, really small, again, you might be thinking, why did it take so long? But I came up with these really, really small spark studs. They're pear-shaped, again, 18 karat gold. And the idea is with them that you might wear a main stud, and then these would kind of like go up the ear, and that you could buy these individually. They still kind of hang with the collection, which is what I really wanted, but they weren't so big. They were for people that wanted just a tiny little bit of the collection and didn't want to have the full Cresette, the full optics cut, morganite. And they were designed to go with these studs here, again, with a diamond, a very modern setting where the internal parts of the star actually hold the diamond. So I came up with a series of probably about 5 or 6 variations of those studs. And as I said, I thought that's where I would start designing the collection, but actually it's where I ended up finishing the collection, because those took me a long, long time. I'm now going to open up the discussion into the chat and have a quick look at if there's any questions from any of you. If any of you would like to know anything about the processes or anything like that. And I am not at the moment. My chat is not opening. Let me just.
I'll jump in, because it's really interesting to hear, because one of the things that you said to me that was quite different to perhaps I would work is that your function leads to the design, rather than finding a design and making it into a functional piece. So I think that's really interesting. Is that always a design process that you've used, or is this one that you've come about to actually work for yourself in the collection?
Yeah, because I have, yes, that's a really good question, Alice. Thank you. And I would say that I have done designs in the past that I've absolutely loved as pieces of sculpture, and they look really beautiful off, but they're unwearable. And the whole thing about jewelry is that like for me, it's like something that people associate with, that they hold memories with, they want to wear all the time. And yeah, like for me, it's one thing to do something that's like, oh, wow, it's an art piece, but it's another thing to do the art piece that can still be worn and still get people can wear to the office and feel great in it, and then layer up and go to a cocktail party and it's still essentially being one piece. And that's really, really important to me. And I think it reflects like a modern woman that's going from the office with a white shirt on, or like everyday kind of life, and then wants to go out, wants to put on a different pair of shoes and essentially wear the same jewelry They might choose to, again, like I've got some jackets where you can actually put the stud on and wear that every day, and then when you're going out in the evening, you can dress it up so that it turns into much more of a statement. But again, it's all very, very easy to wear.
I was quite taken actually that when I'm looking at your collection as a whole, there was a thread and I couldn't put in my mind what that thread was. And of course, once you said it was firework, I can see that it's very delicate pieces, then with, long strands and stones. So I really, suddenly you said it and I was like, oh, I really understand the collection far more. You've got some great pieces such as the Trailblazer. You've got the Cold Fallout, but they're very, very delicate pieces. From working with them, what materials, are they your favorite materials to use to actually make this collection? Because I can see you're using gold, I presume some white gold in there. You're still using what we see as traditional, delicate, high end, but then putting, something like firework where we should see lots and lots, but very, very delicate, pieces coming out there. So really that question is, the delicacy of the material. Do you enjoy working with, gold and white gold and those precious stones I can see?
Yeah, because you can be delicate with it. So the collection, there's some graphic pieces that I kind of think are very strong, perhaps more masculine, and then there's others that are like a more sensual line, more feminine. And for me, when I'm designing, I like to have those two opposites because there's something that you can play with. And as I think that's what actually drew me in to be a fine jeweler, is because of the inherent strength in metals like gold and platinum. You can do things that would be very difficult to do in silver. And I started, which I mentioned right at the beginning, I started as an artist making absolutely massive sculptures. I'm talking 3-meter high sculptures that I couldn't carry on my own, and made out of fragile materials. And I first of all started doing like an evening class in just working out how to solder, like how to do things that were going to hold together, that had structural strength but still had a fragility about them. And that's how I started in the trade, and everything grew from that. So I think there's an inherent fragility, delicacy, but also a strength to all the designs, and I think it's probably an aesthetic that I'm really drawn to.
I really liked at the start when you were saying you actually went through a big, speed. I think that was a word that I haven't heard being used before, was speed. It's like you kind of got so many ideas in your head and putting them down onto paper. And of course, I presume that leads you to one thing to another. But if you just had a rigid, right, this is my first design, this is what I'm going to create. How freeing does that really make you feel? And was it a process of doing that you were informed about, or is it just something that did actually come across as, no, this is what I found that really works for me?
Yeah, and I think another really great question, Alice. You're a really good interviewer. I think that is inherently like what creativity is, and I think it's like it's opening yourself up to opportunities that you wouldn't normally expect. It's kind of giving yourself the space to explore something without being too concerned about the end result to start off with. And for me, I find that speed really helps me, because if I want to do something and I hope that it's going to be perfect straight away, I just get really stuck. I just keep on going over the same thing, redrawing it, and just making tiny changes, when actually it could be that it's just not the right design, it's not going to work, and I need to move on. And I think by giving yourself that sort of freedom to make mistakes and to explore and think, is there a different way of doing this? What do these two things look like together? What's the dialogue that feels like? You suddenly open doors to your process and you surprise yourself, and it means that you can incorporate those things into pieces of work that you wouldn't have predicted you would when you start off with.
Well, kind of talking about speed, we really have kind of sped through your time and your session with us this afternoon. So, Ashleen, I'd like to say a big thank you, for your time this afternoon, and again, a big thank you to all of our attendees. I can see there's one or two questions we haven't been able to answer during, but Ashleen does have live chats via the interact.handmadeinbritain.co.uk website. So do pop in, find her room, and ask her a question. Don't worry if she's not in there, she can go in and she can answer your question and then have that ready for you next time you pop into her room. But Ashleen, once again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon and for being part of Handmade Chelsea online. So for myself and the team, we wish you, great success, over the coming days with us. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.